Okay, good day everyone. So this is a recorded meeting. So previously we have discussed about the history of intelligence and the important or key figures or personnel with regards to the development of intelligence and also the definition of intelligence. So ulitin ko yung definition ng intelligence and its difference from information. So intelligence, again, kagaya yung last time, is a product resulting of the collection, analysis, evaluation, integration, and interpretation of all available information. So for short, intelligence is a processed information which can be used by policymakers and those specified units na kinakailangan yung mga impormasyon. So when we say information, it is a raw data from sources which are either unreliable or reliable. Pwede rin meron silang ambiguous information or ambiguous data from them. And also, information can be also classified as open or closed, yung source ng information. When we say open sources of information, yan yung mga nasa mainstream o yung nasa main circulation ng sources ng information such as yung mga news bites or newspaper columns, radio and TV broadcast, pati na rin yung sa social media. So, it can be used by the government or concerned agencies to determine possible courses of action. So when we say police intelligence, that is a more specified term that is focusing on the execution and the preparation ng mga polisiya, mga programa and plano ng kapulisan or any other police agency. So again, intelligence in the police perspective, it is already a finished product which all information that were collated were already under scrutiny or was scrutinized and evaluated by those personnel in order for the top brass or yung higher command ng kapulisan can use it against the enemies of the state or with regards to the enforcement of the law. Yan. So it's all significant to the operations, whether it is in the planning procedure or for operational procedures ng kapulisan. So today, we will start discussing from the functions of intelligence and then sa principles of intelligence. So when we say functions of intelligence, these are certain actions or yung purpose ng intelligence with regards to it being used by law enforcement or even the military in order to successfully fulfill its mandate. Yan. So first is collection or collation or even procurement of information. So again, yung mga nakolektang impormasyon initially would be sorted out by those under the collection in which they would need to classify it if those information or those bytes of information are of immediate necessity or of strategic or long-term purposes. Of course, after collection, the next is they would evaluate it in which it could be somehow under the intelligence cycle can be already assessed by those intelligence or information gathering units. Next is dissemination. This is the process or part of the process in which the intelligence that was already evaluated and analyzed would be cascaded to those units or those policymakers who greatly needs it the most. So in dissemination of intelligence, it still follows a strict command structure in which yung pinaka-primary na individual who would need that is yung head of state. Specifically kung sa atin yung presidente. Because intelligence units, which are basically under the executive branch, are under his disposal. So he has the authority and the power to direct them through their commanders and then would also receive information firsthand from those intelligence units. Next is counterintelligence. Known as negative intelligence, the purpose of counterintelligence is to protect or conceal the information or those already processed information, yung intelligence against the adversaries or enemies of the state. So, isipin natin kung negative intelligence, that's CI, counterintelligence, that's the defensive function ng isang military or police organization against those enemies or adversaries who would like to collect or get that information, which kung sa government na perspective, it's very important in order to detect, to identify, and to somehow enforce the law against those enemies of the state. Next are the principles of intelligence. So first, in intelligence, there is a great need for the continuity not just of the information na nako-collect, not just of the information that could be developed, but it basically gives those commanders and those policymakers the ability to somehow predict on the things that might come or the shape of things that could come in the near future or of the next few hours. For example, nung panahon ng 1989 kudeta, even if nagkakagulo na ang armed forces ng Pilipinas, the United States Armed Forces was keeping track of what is gonna happen sa Philippine government noong 1989. So, CIA agents inside the US Embassy sa Manila were already giving heads up or yung continuous information from the United States Embassy dito sa ating bansa papunta directly sa CIA headquarters sa United States. So they were giving already continuous flow of information kung ano ang nangyayari at that time and kung ano ang magiging sunod na mga mangyayari or possibly na mangyayari once yung kudeta would succeed or not. And of course, it gave the United States President a gauge kung paano niya i-continue yung relationship sa ating bansa noong 1989, which at that point, naging successful ang kudeta in the sense na napigilan ng government yung mga magkukudeta. Yan. So, na-contain nila. And of course, it gave already the United States an early prediction na ganito ang mangyayari sa Pilipinas. Ma-maintain pa rin yung pagiging presidente at that time ni Cory Aquino. which subsequently was one of the reasons bakit yung mga base militar eh pinull out na ng United States. The same goes with the current president, yan, ng mga iba't ibang bansa. They would use that principle of continuity na daily meron silang intelligence briefing o yung pagsasabi ng mga na-collect na intelligence from their national security advisors, which would help them predict on what might happen to the country in the next few hours or in the next few weeks. Yan. So it's very important kasi kung ang policy maker or yung mga commanders hindi magkakaroon ng continuous flow of information na marireceive nila, then they could not be ahead of the threat. Hindi nila ma-predict yung mangyayari, which could be a reason for them to be underhanded or magkaroon ng disadvantage once a conflict or an emergency would happen. Next is the principle of communication. So in intelligence, when you try to relay the message of a certain information, you need proper and secure communications. And of course, those communications or communication lines must be secured and can have the ability to be directly in the hands or pwedeng yung impormasyon directly ma-receive ng mga decision makers or policy makers na nasa itaas ng chain of command. Yan. So in order for them to understand the situation and to use or utilize available resources effectively. Okay? Next is the principle of selection. In the principle of selection, those information na may immediate or yung pangmadalian na necessity, pangmadalian na kinakailangan, those are divided or subdivided compared to those of long range or pangmatagalan na information. So intelligence should be separated for those essential or pertinent, yung immediate value, and those of moderate value within the next few months, or those long term na siguro for the next few years. So there should be selection of only the most essential, the most pertinent, and of those in need immediately. And then, magkakasunod-sunod na yan yung order of needs sa selection process. Next is timeliness. So in timeliness, it is very important na yung information or yung intelligence that would be disseminated to policymakers would be of the right time or yung appropriate time siya na binigay sa policymakers or even sa commanders. Timeliness is one principle that complements all others. The reason is, kung hindi on time ang pagbibigay ng intelligence, then it might spell disaster for the organization or even the government. Yan. So, best example niya yung ginagawa ngayon ng mga intelligence communities na nagbibigay sila ng early or advanced information of possible terrorist attack sa ating bansa. So dapat, kung sa principle ng timeliness, nauuna yung impormasyon about the terrorists. Hindi pwedeng at the same time na receive nila yung information, umatake na. Timeliness is nawala na doon, and also it created casualties, it created a sense of fear, and it made the terrorists succeed, especially psychologically. Kasi hindi na-anticipate ng mga agencies ng gobyerno na merong mangyayaring masama. Next is the principle of security. In the sense na yung mga impormasyon na nabibigay must be secured once it would be disseminated or will be brought upon in order to be evaluated or analyzed. So yung impormasyon hindi pwede magkaroon ng tinatawag na leaks as much as possible. Yan. There's also this technique, especially sa higher ups ng government, na yung leaks kinokontrol na mailabas. Either to give an assurance to the public or to divert the attention of the public. Yan. For example, yung ginagawa ng United States with regards to yung mga terrorist actions or terrorist na mga events sa Middle East kung saan little information ang binibigay, especially if the battle is ongoing, in order to secure not just the United States personnel but also to secure the good relationship na pwedeng mapanatili between countries and in order to preserve the integrity of its activities. So sa security, there are even techniques na kung saan hindi na nila-label, hindi na nagkakaroon ng segregation, ng classification ng mga impormasyon na na-collect. Yan. In order to prevent others to have that natural instinct to take a look at something na of interest. Yan. So also, in the principle of security, it is to prevent unwanted exposure of certain information to the public. Yan yung gusto ipaiwatig ng security principle. Next is definition of terms muna tayo. So these terms are very important in intelligence in general. So when we say national intelligence, yan refers to the total product of intelligence developed by all governmental agencies that covers broad aspects such as national policy and national security. So hindi lang yung kapulisan, hindi lang yung kasundaluhan ang merong intelligence capabilities. But of course, yung executive, yung presidente, and other government agencies which need or utilizes critical information for their operation. Yan. For example, DNR, meron din yan silang intelligence capability. They need it in order to predict what might happen if a certain site or a certain protected site is being exploited or inabuso. And of course, to gather information on those people abusing environmental facilities. Yan. Next is military intelligence used in the preparation of military policies, plans, and programs. So for example, sa United States, meron silang tinatawag na deterrent capability na nakalagay sa isang malaking briefcase or kanang baga na briefcase. Ang tawag nila dyan is yung football. Kung saan, nandyan nakalatag lahat ng war plans, lahat ng mga codes na gagamitin ng United States President to launch a retaliatory or kanang balos na atake once a nuclear conflict would happen. The same goes dito sa Pilipinas, merong dedicated na office, ang military, in order to prepare those policies and programs nila once an event would happen or once a certain event would occur on a certain place. Yan. Next is strategic intelligence, the knowledge of pertaining to the capabilities and probable courses of action of foreign nations. So hindi lang to pang military but also of foreign relations. Basically, kung sa executive na portion or executive branch of government, ginagamit ang strategic intelligence hindi lang ng executive, ng president, hindi lang ginagamit ng military or ng law enforcement, but also being used by the Foreign Affairs Department in order to have a close connection, close relationship, and an exchange of information with other nations. Yan. For example, yung exchange of information natin sa Japan, a strategic intelligence plan in which once an attack would happen to their country, they could give or share information with our country. Yan. And of course, strategic intelligence, meron ang bawat bansa niyan laban sa mga possible na kalaban ng isang bansa. For example, ang China. They have this capability or yung mga magiging aksyon nila towards their possible enemy, which is the United States, technically. The same goes with North Korea. Meron silang plano on how to attack South Korea. So that is part of their strategic intelligence, knowing the capabilities and probable courses of actions, especially military actions, ng mga magiging kalabang bansa nila. Next, technical intelligence. So, when we say technical intelligence, from the word technical, it involves certain advancements and developments on the technical side of things. Yung mga hindi na troubleshoot ng isang normal na individual or those problems which requires certain special techniques or special capabilities or special technology which can be used by a certain institution or a certain organization ng government. Next is yung AO or area of operation, those aspects of the operational environment which commonly ginagamit ito ng military planners. So, for example, if they want to attack a certain place, they would want to know the weather of that place, yung mga probable na weather niyan for the next 48, 72 hours, or even weeks. Or if they want to attack another country, they would like to know yung current na estado ng kanilang ekonomiya, yung current state ng kanilang government. Like for example, if pinamumunuan ba sila ng isang presidente or yung mga hari at reyna ang namumuno or it is called monarchy. Yan. The same goes with area of operations sa sociology. Ano ba ang kultura ng mga mamamayan nila? Yan. The same goes with hydrographic. So alam nyo ba ng United States, meron silang permanent base sa Japan and they maintain that hydrographic information or yung behavior ng dagat or ng katubigan once they would attack a certain place or would proceed to a certain nation. Yan. Or the characteristics of the environment of an area which they have interest or which they would target. Yan. So, next, capabilities. So, in a military or a law enforcement standpoint, yung capabilities with regards to the enemy. And of course, yung kagaya sa libro ni Sancho, yung strength or manpower ng sarili nilang organization. Yan. So, for example, kung may gera, gusto malaman ng kasundaluhan kung ano bang capability ng mga kalaban nila or for example, mga rebels. May capability ba sila na magkaroon ng air power or limited lang bang rebelde sa terrain or meron ba silang limit sa firepower or yung firearms? Yan. So those capabilities, whether they are of advantage or disadvantage to a certain nation or a certain group, it is still being taken into consideration. And of course, if it has a negative effect to them or to their enemies, they would be called vulnerability or vulnerabilities. So for example, sa Philippines, ang classification sa atin ng mga defense or yung mga defense journals is that yung ating hukbo is not capable of projecting power beyond our territory. So it is one reason na kinakailangan pa raw ng ating gobyerno na maipalakas ang kanyang military at ang kanyang enforcement sa laws. For example, yung police power and yung capability natin na magkaroon ng mga armas. And of course, our vulnerability is that dahil hindi tayo capable mag-project ng ating power beyond our territory, it means that we are somehow one of those countries na may malaking vulnerability against attacks of other bigger nations. Okay? So, yan yun. So, next, let's proceed to the functional classification of police intelligence. So, merong mga sub-category, sub-classifications ang police intelligence. First is yung criminal intelligence, CRIMINT. So, from the word criminal itself, those are intelligence which are needed in the prevention of crimes, investigation of crimes, and yung location in order for them to be arrested, taken into custody, and to be prosecuted. Next is insint, refers to the knowledge essential to the maintenance of peace and order. So in insint or internal security intelligence, this is best exemplified yung mga impormasyon against rebels or kung diri sa Pilipinas ang CPP, NPA, NDF. So ano bang mga taktika nila? Ano bang mga strongholds nila or saan ba sila nakabase? Ano ba ang mga organizations or sino ba yung mga organizations na nakikisimpatiya sa kanila? Yun. In order to prevent the attack of those rebels or on other terms, yung mga atake din ng mga terorista. So, gaano ba kalakas ang mga terorista? How would they affect the peace and order of a certain place? Yan. Public safety intelligence, these are knowledge essential to ensure the protection of lives and properties. Included din dito is yung weather or yung natural conditions ng isang lugar. For example, dito sa atin, alam natin ang Pilipinas dinadaanan ng bagyo. So, part of public safety intelligence is to protect the public. So, for example, may paparating na bagyo, the direction, the location, and the strength of that typhoon or that storm is important in order to protect lives and properties, in order to inform the government, to inform the public na merong nagbabadyang bagyo. And also, of course, to evacuate them to a safer place. Next is biographical intelligence. From the word biography or biography, it deals with the personalities of a certain person or of those people who have actual possession of power. Ito. So for example, ang United States of America, ito, considered as the most powerful country or one of the most powerful countries. Yan. So, part ng kanilang military organization, of course, yung intelligence agencies nila, is to maintain biographical intelligence of all politicians around the world. Yan, of course, they have the information with regards to our president o yung prime minister ng Thailand or even the president of South Korea. Sino ba ang presidente nila? Ano bang ugali niya? Saan ba siya nakatira? Ano ang natapos niya? Ano ang mga gusto at hindi niya gusto? That is being maintained by the United States Intelligence Agency, specifically yung CIA. So, ayan, they would like to know into the mind of that certain personality, especially yung mga may power. Best example, yung mga heads of state, yung mga presidente, mga prime minister, yung mga hari at reyna. Even our country, we maintain a biographical intelligence of those individuals who might be our friends or might be our enemies. Whether it's Xi Jinping ng China or si Donald Trump ng US or si Hassan Bolkiah ng Brunei. Asan ba sila nakatira? Ano bang pag-uugali nila? Ano bang natapos nila? Ano bang background nila? And ano bang personality ng mga may power, especially in the government of other countries. Okay? This armed forces intelligence, that's about intelligence which are used, or collected, used, and utilized by the armed forces in order to maintain and successfully do its job, which is to protect the nation. Next is geographical intelligence. It's maintained not just for the whole of government, but also of the military and police, which involves research and development and to know the characteristics of certain geographical parts. Like for example, gusto ng army natin malaman yung terrain sa mga bukid sa Sierra Madre sa Northern Luzon. So they would create a software or they would even research and develop man-made satellites na pwede gamitin ng Pilipinas against its enemies. So yan. If they want to know the terrain, they would use geographical intelligence. Yan ang isa sa mga importante, especially sa military standpoint. Best example ng sources of geographical intelligence, yung Google Earth. Yan, or yung Google Maps. Its main job primarily is for public use. Pero yung mga certain na mga special or mas advanced na features ng Google Earth is only for the use ng United States military. Specifically, yung Google Earth was created with the help of the United States Navy. Yan. Kasi ang United States Navy before Google Earth was having the most detailed map of the world. Kasi gagamitin yun nila once an event would happen anywhere around the world. So ayan yun. The use of geographical intelligence. Next is types of intelligence. So, napakaraming pwedeng usage or uses nito, there are three general types. First is strategic intelligence. These are intelligence data that are gathered which, take note, does not have an immediate operational value or hindi gagamitin immediately. So, strategic intelligence, for short, is of long range value. And long range value ang strategic intelligence because it can be used and be relevant for future military or kung sa ating subject, future police operations. Long range. Yan. Sunod, line intelligence. To. So take note, line intelligence, these are immediate or needed by commanders in the field, pati na rin yung mga policy makers in the conduct of their operations, especially hina-highlight yung dito sa ating bansa, counterinsurgency or yung against sa mga terorista at rebelde. So line intelligence, for short, is of immediate or yung short range. Short range. Yung kinakailangan ngayon. That's line intelligence. Next, again, counterintelligence. It was described earlier. It covers the activity of an organization which collects intelligence and, of course, destroys the effectiveness of those adversaries or yung mga kalaban. And, of course, primarily protect the information against the following acts such as espionage, yan, yung makaka-penetrate ang spies, yan, subversion, yan, in order to prevent the overthrowing of the government by force. And of course, yung pananabotahe, either physical na military sabotage or yung mas may malaking effect, yung economic sabotage against a certain country. For example, dito sa Pilipinas, mayroon tayong mga counterintelligence operatives, may counterintelligence agencies, which their job is to prevent those people who have subversive plans against our government or yung style of government natin, or to prevent them from inflicting fear or inflicting damage to our government. Yan. Either they would sabotage or pananabotahe sa ating ekonomiya or physical na sabotage. Yan. And of course, primarily to prevent those spies to enter or penetrate the government or penetrate the law enforcement or military. Yan. So those are the three types of intelligence in general. So next topic that we will discuss is about the intelligence cycle, which is, of course, an important topic on this subject. So, when we say the intelligence cycle, of course, commonly of a circular shape. So, yung intelligence cycle, it's a process in which yung impormasyon na nakuha would be converted into intelligence at magiging available para sa mga policy makers or those who has the need or utilization for those intelligence. So yung cycle, para siyang cycle talaga na it can be repeated. A process which is somehow constantly repeated. A process by which information is converted and made available to users. Commonly, yung nasa executive branch, yung president. So, the objectives of it is that kailangan yung impormasyon o yung trabaho within the intelligence community must be distributed equally or yung mas specialized in order for them not to overload and to have more focus on their certain part of the intelligence cycle. So the intelligence process or yung cycle na yan starts when yung mga consumers or yung policy makers, yung mga higher officials ng military and law enforcement would need or have an express need for those intelligence in order to help them accomplish their missions or fulfill their mandates. So, one of the important things to take note, yung PIR or yung Priority Intelligence Requirements, which is greatly needed or would be explained and levied by those intelligence agencies which would serve particular customers. Yan, kung sa military, meron yung ISAF. Yan. So ISAF or the Intelligence Service or of the Forces of the Philippines caters primarily on the military side of things dito sa ating bansa. Next of it is of course yung Directorate for Intelligence, of course with the help ng intelligence group ng Philippine National Police. That's basically for the law enforcement or yung police side. Of course, there are other law enforcement agencies with their own intelligence units. But on the executive side, especially dito sa ating bansa, nandyan yung National Intelligence Coordinating Authority. So the National Intelligence Coordinating Authority, which started noong 1949 or was enacted by law noong 1949 is our primary intelligence gathering agency ng government. So they are directly being led by a director general which then would report to either the Secretary of National Defense, to the National Security Advisor, or of course to the President. Pero itong NICA primarily is reporting to the National Security Advisor. So itong si National Security Advisor is a cabinet position under the executive branch. Siya ang nagbibigay ng advice sa President with regards to national security measures or national security matters. So ayan, lahat yan sila merong PIR which they would need in order to conduct an investigation or to conduct intelligence gathering. So ayan, pinakita ko sa inyo ang intelligence cycle. It starts with planning and direction. So sabihin natin, kinakailangan ng president ng immediate information or information with regards to those who are planning terrorist attacks sa Mindanao. So, of course, the intelligence communities would start to plan and create an action in order to, of course, masunod yung gusto ng presidente. So, how would they do it? They would proceed next after planning and direction, selecting those people who will do it into yung mismong pag-collect ng information and evaluation of it. So, dyan na yung mga surveillance, mga wiretapping, which is actually illegal, diyan na yun nangyayari. Then, next, third process is yung information processing and collation of those collected information. Then, susunod na yan, papunta sa analysis and intelligence production, in which on this process, it would be converted to intelligence yung information. Kasi meron ng evaluation, meron ng analysis. And then, the intelligence would be completely converted, and would be disseminated to policymakers, or if they want it to be shared to the public, directly sa community. And then, the community, with the, of course, guidance of the government, can create a certain action to address the threat. Yan. And of course, itong community or those decision makers, yung mga operators in the field, can give their evaluation and feedback to the intelligence na nakuha or na-gathered, and they could give their specific feedback back to those planners. Yan. So, we would explain that specifically. Yan. First part of the intelligence cycle is planning and direction. The management of the entire effort, sila yung nagpaplano. Yan. So, ano yung PIR? Ano yung requirements? So, ano ba yung specific na information ang gusto? For example, ng presidente, if he wants to know the location of terrorists, what specific type of information does he need or require? So, kung na-set na yun, are those information easily available or not? Or ano ba ang mga tactics, or kung ano ba ang procedures na gagawin ng mga taong magko-collect ng information against a subject? Yan. So, it will be determined by those questions. Next is the collection phase. Yan. Kung saan may maraming methods or may certain methods of collection of those information, and yung mga collecting agencies, dyan na ma-set sino ba ang mag-ooperate. Yan. So, are those information collected overtly or open? Or are those information that would be collected be done covertly or in secret? Yan. So, also, it would have the question kung sino ba yung gagawa ng operation. Is it the military? Is it the police? Or some other government agency or other organization which is staffed by the planners? So, in the methods or sources of information, meron tayong overt at covert. Dito sa overt or open sources, yan na yung mga nasa news, yung nakikita nyo, nasa newspaper, radio and TV, or sa SOCMED, social media. Yan. Overt sources are easily collected or easily attainable kasi nasa mainstream na kalakaran. Yan. So, dahil mas madali at mas marami ito, it comprise of 90% ng sources of information na collected because it is easily accessible by the public. Next is itong covert sources of information. So, yan, may 90% ka na, that is 10%. That is much more challenging to collect kasi itong covert sources napakarami. Either directly sa subject or they would need to elicit information from other sources secretly. So yan, that is the covert sources. 10% lang yan. So next is Yan, i-explain ko. Open sources, 90%. Non-open or yung covert sources, 10%. So when we say covert, it is secret and also it is done through clandestine operations. So sa non-open sources, kinakailangan din ng mga informants at informers. So informants or assets, sinabi ko na noon, thank you. Hindi nila kinakailangan ng price or reward or kapalit. Voluntarily or without consideration nilang ginagawa ang pagbibigay ng impormasyon. When we say informer, generally agents of the government or some others maintained by government agents, yan, through what we call yung informant network or informant net, they would give information in consideration of a price or reward. Yan. So napakaraming mga technologies or mga equipment na ginagamit sa pag-collect ng information covertly. Yan. So, pakita ko lang yung iba. Yan. Commonly, drones. Ang Pilipinas, bago lang naka-receive ng around 14 na mga high-class drones from Israel. So, basically, that's for military use. Meron din tayong mga handheld equipment. Yan, from sound detectors, even to yung mga wire taps, yan, phone taps. And commonly, yung mga drones ngayon, especially sa United States, meron ng capability na umatake or mag-retaliate. Hindi lang para sa pag-collect ng information, but of course, acting upon the threat. Yan, yung mga others, voice recognition, yan, voice analysis, yan. Of course, CCTVs, yan yung pinaka-basic at pinaka-common, yung closed-circuit televisions. And of course, yung somehow one of the most widely used, the taking of photographs mismo. Yan. So, a photograph tells 1,000 or even 1,000,000 words, million phrases. So all of those technologies, kinakailangan ng specialization that is part of an intelligence agent's or an intelligence agent's tradecraft. So ang mga intelligence agents, meron silang sari-sariling tradecraft na ginagamit which is needed to successfully complete or accomplish yung mission nila, which is collecting information. So yan, it requires skill, it requires training, it requires time to develop yung tradecraft na pinili nila. Next phase is the information processing phase of the intelligence cycle, which involves the following steps. So first, collation, that is the filtering and sorting of information. So commonly, the other term for it is collecting. Yan. So they would collect those potentially relevant information. Next is recording. So sa recording of those collected or collated information, it can be done through writing, yan. Pero commonly electronically, or they would need to record it through the form of graphic representation. Siguro kasi mas madaling convey ang message through graphics kaysa naman letters or words. So, ayan yun. It also would be recorded permanently sa database ng organization. Because maybe they could use it in the future. Sunod, evaluation. That is the examination of info to determine its value, to determine its reliability and its pertinence, pati na rin yung source. Yan. So, sa evaluation, i-determine kung yung source ba ng information can be trusted by the government or can be trusted by the planners, and also hindi siya magkakaroon ng failure. Yan. Also, one of those steps sa information processing, you need pertinence. That is the determination of the area of operation or the determination of who really needs it or when is it needed. Kasi yung impormasyon na nako-collect, it is not for everybody. Merong common term or common notion, saying na yung intelligence, the information or yung intelligence na nako-collect are only for those people who has the need to know or yung may kinakailangan talaga. Specifically, those on the higher command structure. Specifically, kung sa government, yung president, he always has the need to know basis. Yan. And of course, reliability, sources of information, which source of information is reliable and which is not. That is done through evaluation and analysis. So, sa evaluation guide, meron tayo dito. Please take note of the evaluation guide being used, or those are just some simple code words in which madedetermine yung accuracy ng information at yung reliability ng source ng information. So for example, if ang information would be classified as an A1 information, yan, A1 ang information, sir, yun ang sinabi. So that is completely reliable and confirmed by other sources, either ng military, ng police, or any other information collection agency or other government agencies. Pag sinabi nating D2, yan, not usually reliable at may probability of being true or probably totoo. But the thing with intelligence, especially yung mga line intelligence, the data that is collected must be sure. Yan. Kasi kung, for example, F6 yan, reliability cannot be judged at hindi ma-determine yung katotohanan, then it would give policymakers harder time para ma-prevent yung threat. Yan. So, that is used yung evaluation guide. Please take note of the evaluation guide. Next is yung guide naman natin para sa source or sources of information. So, pag sinabi nating A1T, yan, or A1T, the information is completely reliable, confirmed by other sources, and collected through the direct observation ng isang unit commander or ng isang police official. Pag sinabi nating A1V, yung mga tropa sa field during an operation or sa isang encounter, sila yung naka-validate nung impormasyon. Sila yung naka-collect yun and further validated. Yan. Kung A1V. Kung ang source ng information is from interrogation of captured enemies or of those uh, people with certain interest, yan, or persons of interest, yan. A1W, yan, confirmed by other sources, completely reliable, and was collected through interrogation of captured enemies. Yan. So please take note of the sources of information. Yan. So meron dyan yung explanations ng kada isa. Yan, from confirmed to by other sources. Yan, probably true. Yan, walang proof or in yung kanyang katotohanan cannot be really established. Yan. Possibly true yan, may explanations dyan. Hanggang sa doubtfully true. Improbable. Itong sa improbable, explain ko lang konti. When we say improbable, the attainability or yung ability ng isang event o yung capability ng isang event na mag-materialize or mangyari is improbable or has less chance of being committed or has less chance of occurring. Pero meron pang mas mababa dyan na category. Yan. Truth cannot be judged because maybe dito sa 6 or number 6, walang agent or walang personnel na nasa field or walang makaka-complement, makaka-validate sa information. The next phase involves the analysis and intelligence production or yung interpretation and analysis of those collected information. Of course, you have been evaluated. This is the time where drawing of conclusions would soon be on its latter stages. Yan. Kung madedetermine na din dito yung significance ng impormasyon na na-collect. Next is dissemination and use. So, by this time, it is already converted into intelligence. Yung delivery na lang or yung method of delivery to those policymakers or to those who has the need to know, importante na yung pag-check nung security ng information or how would it be delivered to the right people. And of course, iniwasan din dito na phase na ito, yung pag-distribute ng raw data. Yan. So, it must be analyzed, it must be deliberated, and it must be properly and carefully be converted into finished intelligence, which yung consumers kinakailangan yan. Yan. So, how would they deliver those messages or deliver those data? So, can be to personal contact. For example, si National Security Advisor, magkakaroon sila ng meeting with the President, may briefing. And of course, personally pupunta yung agent na kumolect ng information. So yan, person-to-person exchanges or through messages, either by courier or yung secure connection. Yan, yung tinatawag na hotlines. Yan, so every head of state, whether it's the Philippines, the United States, or any other country, meron yan silang secure communications. As much as possible, secure global communications. Yung ability na makipag-connect with other countries and within their government securely. Yan, kung saan merong sophisticated crypts or yung tinatawag na encryption sa kanilang communication lines. Of course, it can be disseminated to intelligence documents or yung reports. Yan, ITS, yung watch list na pinapalabas, target list, special reports, or interrogation reports. Those are one of the procedures. And of course, once it is already on the policymaker side of things, yan. After the briefing, sabi natin ng president, they can evaluate and have a feedback on those collected intelligence. So was it useful? What does it need more information or data to be collected? Yan. So continuous assessment, continuous evaluation and feedback during each phase is of course needed para ma-determine yung value. So methods of collecting information or those techniques, yan, nandito sa sunod. So, yung kinokolekta, ang tinatawag information. Those are the materials. Yun yung kinakailangan. Observation, rumors, yan mga chismis, reports, or images, or yung mismong hard sources. Yan. So, open sources is also called overt sources. Closed sources is also called covert sources. So, on the next slide, dyan. Dyan na ma-explain sa inyo yung mga methods. Yan, overt intelligence. We can get it through media publications. We can get it through TV and radio. We can get it through informants or even yung mga common na citizens or records of public domain. Yan. Closed sources with the use of surveillance, nandyan na yun. Surreptitious entry or yung secret entry, interrogation of those people under custody. Yan yung mga parang mas exciting yung para sa inyo. Mas exciting. Yan yung surveillance, yan na yung close sources. Yan na yung ginagawa. Okay? So, next, these are the persons who are used as sources of information which is utilized by the government or even ng enemies ng government. So, ayan. May informant net tayo or informant network. A controlled group of people who works in coordination with what we call the agent handlers. Yung mga members ng informant net are agents, while yung nagde-direct sa kanila is yung handler. Yan. So, siya yung nagbibigay ng coordination to those people who needs it. Of course, yung specific members, yung mga informants or informers. Yan. Okay, so I would end my discussion sa persons as sources of information. On the next meeting, ito ang i-discuss ko. Magsisimula ako sa types of informants. Okay, so we will be discussing that by next time. And by the time you have viewed this, it has been already posted sa LMS. So, please view this. Nandun na yun, nandito na rin yun sa YouTube channel ko. So, you can view it also sa YouTube. Okay? So, once again, thank you and have a good day sa inyo.